This is Jeff Standridge, and this is the Innovation Junkies podcast. If you want to drastically improve your business, learn proven growth strategies, and generate sustained results for your organization, you've come to the right place. Over the next half hour, we're going to be sharing specific strategies, tactics, and tips that you can use to grow your business, no matter the size, no matter the industry, and no matter the geography. Weekly, we'll bring in a top mover and shaker, someone who's done something unbelievable with his or her business, and we'll dig deep. We'll uncover specific strategies, tactics, and tools that they've used to help you achieve your business goals. Welcome to the Innovation Junkies podcast.
Hey guys, if you're looking to put your business on the fast track to achieving sustained strategic growth, this episode is sponsored by the team at Innovation Junkie. To learn more about our Growth DX, go to innovationjunkie.com/growthdx. Now let's get on with the show.
Hey guys, Jeff Standridge here, and welcome to the next episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. Great to have you here.
Yeah, it's Jeff Amaron. I'm glad to be back, and I think we've got a great guest lined up. Who we got today, Jeff?
We do, all the way from the Gold Coast of Australia, just up the M1 from Brisbane in Queensland. We have Ash Richardson. Ash has 20 years of digital and technology experience, strategy experience as well. He's co-founded a couple of companies, one of which is it's called #Team. Also has spent time with Accenture and a number of other companies, previously a VC investing in technology startups, and he's now the co-founder of StratApp, which we're going to be learning a lot about. He's got unique skills in product strategy, design, and also in offshoring. He and I share some common experience there, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well. Ash, great to have you with us today.
Hey guys.
You already said you're on your second coffee, right?
I am. It's early here, 7:20, and I must say we're from the Sunshine Coast. The Gold Coast is south. We're on the
okay,
north.
all right.
Sunshine Coast.
See,
Yeah.
I just showed my ignorance there with geography.
It's only the locals that'll care. Don't worry.
I thought I might get it by the skin of my teeth, but I guess I missed it.
Well, you're in an area where the weather's never really bad, though, right?
Yeah.
It's always nice in Queensland, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we understand. And speaking of that, sometimes what we like to do is a bit of a random musing. So today's random musing is tell us about your worst weather story. And it could be from Australia or wherever.
Mine personally would be, as a child, just living a bit south from here, we had a hailstorm that took out like 100-meter strip, a little bit like the tornadoes that go through the US, and it just destroyed houses in like a snake form through the suburb, and one of our house was one of them. So it lost the side of the house, and you're in the house, and there's football size hail coming through the windows, and the walls are getting smashed. It was pretty amazing, and the roofs come off, and yeah.
And this was in Australia?
That was in Australia. Yeah,
wow.
in Brisbane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeff, how about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, another supercell story, and this was from when I lived in Southwest Wyoming, which is a place that doesn't have that many storms, but when they have storms, they're pretty epic. And so it was in August of 1985, and I'd lived out there for about a year. And we had a supercell that came across that dumped about 8 inches of rain on Cheyenne. I was at the Air Force Base there in about 45 minutes. And it turned all the roads into canals. And I lost 2 vehicles in that. And I actually was in one of the vehicles trying to get out of the main gate of the air base and had to kind of swim to shore.
Wow.
So out of my vehicle. So yeah, that was probably my worst weather story. And when you're young like that, you don't think anything about it and realize that was kind of like a near-death experience. But I'd be mortified if I had to live through that again. Jeff, what about you?
My worst weather story comes, of all places, from London, England. And it lasted from November of 2003 to February of 2004. It was about 6 hours of daylight, and it was rainy every day, every weekend, and we got almost no vitamin D, no sunshine, and so finally when March rolled around, the weather started perking up a little bit. But that's probably my worst weather experience, where it was extended weepiness and rain and drizzle and darkness and what have you. So
That's just normal England weather that time of year.
no, I know.
Yeah,
But we didn't say what's the worst, what's the worst weather story. We said what's your worst weather story.
Oh, I gotcha.
And that was it. So
Well, we can cross off any of our potential London listeners at this point, I guess.
I loved London. I loved London March to October.
Right.
It's fantastic. But that November to February was a little rough for me. So
I gotcha. Well, let's get into the meat of the matter here. Tell us a little bit. I love your advertising on the shirt there. That's great branding. Tell us a little bit about what the application does and how you came to create it.
So the application is called StratApp, and the product solves strategy execution for all size companies. So we set about connecting leaders in the company to middle management, frontline employees in one experience so that everyone's moving in the same direction. And like all things, when you go to create it, you don't actually set out with that in mind. You're looking at different problems and aspects. And I met my co-founder a few years ago, Marty, who'd been in tech for 20 years as well. And he'd worked a lot across Asia and distributing. He worked for Concur, which is now SAP Concur. He built the Asia business for that. And more recently, Cooper. He was heading up Asia for Cooper. And I was with Accenture previously and traveling mostly Europe and US. And the same story we had was everywhere you went, there's this big disconnect between what the leaders are trying to do or thinking what's happening and what's actually happening inside the company. And then later on, I got to work in smaller companies, investing as a VC in startups, and then did some mid-market deals as well, and just saw the same thing. It doesn't matter if there's 50 employees or 200 or 500, or you're getting up into proper mid-market size companies, 1,500. Just this huge disconnect, and it gets harder and harder the larger the company is, and it takes you by surprise as a startup as well. I've sat on a number of boards, and as you go from 5 to 15 to 25 employees, and you listen to founders, talking on podcasts of tech companies, they'll just talk about the pain of that journey. And then you cross 100 and you get to 200 employees. So we just thought about that long and hard, and then had a good look at tech because we love tech and we've been in it for forever. And particularly the last 10 years of work collaboration tech, initially social, and then it's expanded. And we've just figured out that actually you could take that experience that everyone loves already and have become accustomed to over the last 10 years and use that experience to solve ideation to planning to strategy to execution. And so that's what we said we're going to do, and we did it. And it's now live and getting great feedback, and we're in 9 countries, and we're still early, and we're about to go through that growth phase, right? But we're running it inside the app, so we should be fine.
So talk to us a little bit about how the app works. You talk about ideation to planning to strategy and then execution. Take your best use case, perhaps, and share with us a little bit about how it actually works and what goes on inside the app and how it improves performance.
Sure. So we've taken a conscious decision to stay out of strategy development. So that's the part that scares most folks, right? So scares or they don't do it. But I met a professor from London, the country you were bagging a little bit earlier.
Help me out here, Ash. You're getting me in trouble with all of our London listeners.
Yeah, sure, sorry. I've got to tone it down. So he'd just done a PhD. I can't remember the university. It was Oxford or Cambridge. And he figured out there was 96 methods to create strategy. And I remember at Accenture, we had a different method to KPMG, which was different again to the approach from McKinsey. So there's so many different ways to formulate strategy. However, most folks are pretty good at that, in my experience. Like they know roughly, hey, this is where we want to go, and this is why. And in 3 or 4 years from now, this is where we'd like to be. Where it really falls apart is executing the strategy and moving forward. So that's where the app kicks into its own. And I think the one thing to get your head around is if you build a strategy only app, and there's been 8 good ones already on the market, and if you build a strategy only app, you lose the workforce in terms of there's no reason to open the app and keep going there every day. So, and we realized that very early on because of our experience with other tech apps and rolling them out internationally. So what StratApp does is it makes sure that you're formulating the plan, and then hierarchy that you can lay out your goals, sub-goals, actions, and projects. And then at any level in the tree, you collaborate to execute on that particular aspect, and then translate it into what you want to get done this quarter or this month. If you're a smaller company, you'll be doing your OKRs planning cycle monthly. If you're a little bit bigger, most likely quarterly. And then the third piece is actually the work taking place is in the same user experience. So you go from goal to objective to project to task to a meeting about the task to an action from that meeting to identifying a risk, adding ideas, all of it taking place in one experience. And in the end, the product is 15 apps in one, but we don't sell it like that because that's hard for folks to get their head around.
Mm-hmm.
What we're selling is if you've got 10 employees or 5,000 employees, you'll be able to move everyone in the same direction at all levels because you're all working in the same experience digitally, and it includes all the aspects from the initial idea to the plan to getting it done, setting the targets and then getting it done. It's all in one place. And then you get the secondary benefits. If you think of what Ray Dalio's thinking is around, the more transparent and clear it is inside a company, what's going on at all levels, then the performance accelerates. And Elon Musk is another one proponing the same thinking.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about I get the planning, strategy, execution. Help me understand and help our listeners understand about the ideation component of that. Where does that plug into the app?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't know this when we started the project, actually, because we were starting very much from strategy and execution. However, the ideation in tech has been around since 2000, and a couple of good British companies, we should say, are in the space. I think Bright Ideas is from the UK.
Yeah.
And
thank you for bailing me out there on that.
Yeah, no problem. And and when you look at ideation tech, it boils down to two key features. So one is crowdsourcing ideas across your organization. So running challenges and saying, hey, we've got this problem, please pitch in your ideas, and they get rated and then channeled through a funnel. And then the other side of it is just capturing ideas on the fly as you go. So we've made sure we've built those two components into StratApp so that ideation is not an annual planning exercise. It's not something where you just go away once a year and then start thinking. It's something that's taking place all year round. And we had to go a step further as we're designing the product to make sure it's even included in the conversation. So we have tagging in conversations. You can tag things as a risk, note, task, idea, request a response, request approval, make a decision. So we have, I think, 11 tags at the moment in the social side of the app. But one of them is ideas. So if you tag something as an idea, it automatically creates an idea card inside the product, which then automatically goes up to the ideation tab and can be managed through a funnel of progress on all the ideas that you're capturing across the company.
And so it's integrated then with the strategy component as well?
Yeah, so there are modules that work, in stages, right? So you basically, when you go from so you got ideation running in that module, and then you assess that and you take the best of that to then inform what you're going to do strategically. So on the strategy side, we've taken thinking from different thought leaders. So we've got, if you think of Professor Roger Martin, HBR.org, and does a lot of work with Deloitte, he's laid out this very good construct for setting out your direction and what capabilities you're going to need to achieve what you want to achieve. So that page is inside StratApp under the strategy tab. And then we've also got Simon Sinek's construct, because the next generation really want to understand why are we doing what we're doing. So that's in there as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you then move into laying out your 1 to 3 year plan, depending on which country you're in. So some countries think more 5-10 years, right? And others are more in that sort of 1 to 3. And then you build out your plan as a tree. And it's really simple. And what the biggest insight, your question before was, practical insight or examples from doing it this way. I think the biggest one for me, and I've seen it around the world, companies all sizes since we've been live with the product, is leaders realize that the PowerPoint deck that they're running around the company with is not really a strategy. And it feels good and it looks good, but it doesn't actually spur action and get people moving in the same direction. And in fact, it's often not read and ignored or forgotten after a couple of weeks. So when you go through the process of taking that thinking you had when you were writing a PowerPoint deck and then going, okay, what do we need to do to achieve it? So what are the top 3 things we need to do in the next 12 months? And then how do each of those break down? And that classic rule of 3 to 6 at each level in the tree just lays it out beautifully. So you just build this hierarchy of logic of what needs to be done. And because it's live and interactive, the whole workforce engages with it. And that's the difference. No one wants to read a static document once a year. Strategy should be alive and breathing, and it never stops. And if you make it easy and accessible and interactive, you'll engage everyone in the company. And although it's particularly well suited to millennials, per the video you guys picked up on, it actually works for all ages, all everyone wants to know what's going on. Why am I doing what I'm doing at the company? Where does it fit in? How do I contribute? And where can I offer more value outside my immediate role? Everyone has the same goal.
Well, that's certainly one of the things that caught my eye about the app. Jeff Amaran and I, we talk about with the strategy work that we do, there's no 3-ring binders allowed because many times strategy gets created. It's 3 inches thick. It goes into a 3-ring binder and it gets put on a shelf. And then we pull it out in 12 or 15 months to see how we've performed. And so I like the concept of simplistic and then also helping the actual execution and the monitoring of the execution. Very good.
Hey, folks, we'll be right back with the episode. But first, we want to tell you about a limited opportunity to take advantage of our Growth DX. For a limited time, we're offering a free strategy call to see whether our unique diagnostic tool is right for you. Go to innovationjunkie.com/growthdx to learn more. Talk a little bit about, so this kind of speaks to a lot of things that we believe, which is why I think it's really an interesting conversation. But when you come in with a platform to an enterprise, what's the secret for getting widespread adoption and behavior changes so that you get that top to bottom adoption and people are actively using it and they don't feel like, oh, it's one more thing now that I've got to do? What's your plan been for that?
So it's a great question, and it's really important for our success that we get this right. That's where your question goes, right? Mm-hmm. So what we've found so far is generally there is no clear plan written down, plan of action that everyone can talk to and understand. And if you walk around a company and say, hey, tell me what the plan is, where's this business heading, how it's going to get there, and why are you doing what you're doing, that's a fairly diluted and chaotic picture you'll get back from employees. So you do have to start with the leadership team. And so with that, we do the same with the product. So we encourage the leadership team just to say, hey, don't roll it out to 150 employees or 500 straight away. Just start with the top 5 to 8 folks in the company and start working in one workspace, and then add the next level and the next level and the next level. And then it just goes naturally from there. It's intuitive, so you don't need end user training. But what captures the hearts and minds of people is when your content is in there as a client, right? The client's content. So, and that content kind of needs to start with the CEO and the leadership team. So that also becomes, that means our onboarding can be a little bit slower, and might take a month or 2 for those folks to get all on the same page and happy with their content. But what happens is they discover the other features in the app. So live meeting notes, workboards, tasks, private workspace. They just realize the power of having that all in one experience that's pointing to your OKRs and pointing to your strategy. So quite often they'll start rolling the app out in stages, even if they're not perfectly happy with the direction page or the why page or the strategy tree. They'll just turn that off, enable some other parts of the app to run a bit quicker across the org. So it's horses for courses, but I agree with the way you frame the question. It does need to start with the leadership team. And then it's no different to go back to the 80s and 90s, right? Everyone wants to be where the action is. So, if there's a presentation happening on Friday and voluntary, and if you want to go along and find out what's going on, most people turn up and they want to hear where we're heading and what's the latest. And that's how it used to be, right? You'd sit in front of the workforce and do your presentation once a month or once a fortnight and take questions live in front of everyone else, and we'd all be on the same page. And that experience has been diluted now because we don't work that way and we're more distributed and reliant on tech. So we're kind of plugging that behavior. And the adoption by middle management and frontline staff is super fast and easy. It's just getting the leaders on the same page initially. That's the starting point.
Gotcha. Do you see making linkages to performance management systems as well, so that you've got aligned incentives? And I mean, is there going to be some tie to those platforms also?
So we will, in the longer term, yeah, for sure. And what we want to do is almost provide automatically the performance appraisal type experience. And I know a lot of companies are just moving away from the annual reviews and everything else. So it should be sort of live and obvious, the performance of individuals and teams and different leaders in the business. So that's where we'll head. Right now in the product, we have the OKR methodology fully built out and live inside the product. And again, I mentioned there's 8 strategy apps already on the market. There's also 8 very good OKR apps, right? And again, it's a single use app to do one thing, adds another, like you said before, here's another thing we've got to do. So inside StratApp, you build out your monthly or quarterly OKRs and you cascade them through the organization. That's not particularly special. The dashboard is not particularly special. It's the same as the other apps. Where the magic is, in StratApp, your OKRs are hanging off your strategy tree. So people have a context for, hey, why are we doing this quarter? Well, it's part of this 2-year goal we've got to do X, Y, Z. And then on top of that, not only do you have the context, when you're on the dashboard, in one click, you can open and see the work taking place. And that's the magic of StratApp. And that's what I said at the beginning. We're connecting strategy to targets to the actual work all in one experience. So you can look at that positively or negative, right? Negatively, there's nowhere to hide and, everyone can see what's going on. How do I get through my job without doing any work? Pretty hard. But on a positive light, but the way it's all going, right? It's all about being transparent and open and really building a solid sense of direction and purpose across hundreds of people, not just 3 or 4 at the top. And this app enables you to do that. And in one click, you're able, it's not about checking or Big Brother, it's more about leading and being able to lead, because if you can go 5 levels down into the work as a leader, from the tree to the targets, to the projects, to the tasks, to the meetings, and you can just offer some support and feedback and encouragement and congratulate people and participate as a leader without being constrained by the org chart, just positively lead at all levels. The effect of that on your workforce is enormous. And that's what the app's allowing you to do that.
So Ash, you said you're in 9 countries now, I believe you said, with the app, and you're live and actually functioning. Do you have any maybe tangible anecdotes or success stories of what's happened as a result of companies deploying StratApp that you could share with us?
Yeah, so I think the number one feedback we get is just that sense of, right, now I know where I fit in. That's that's the revelation of particularly younger folks or folks that are new to a company, and that could be not at any level, right? So if you're taking over a team and you can see what the team's working on and what the plan is and what other folks in the company are doing, there's no longer that 3 to 6 months, induction, get up to speed type period. It's happening immediately. And I love the reaction of folks when they see that, inside the tech. Another one for me was that stands to mind is we had a more traditional company that's been around 35 years in Asia, and they're operating across 4 countries. And like all of us, they're all using different apps. So some countries were on MS Teams, others were on Slack. Um, they had different collaboration tech for projects, and of course, they're living and breathing email. A couple of hundred emails a day. So that typical model you see wherever you go. And initially, really resisted the tech for whatever reason. I don't know why, but the CEO insisted, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just have my direct reports on it, and we'll just work inside StratApp, and we'll set out the goals and plans and our projects, and everyone else doesn't have to change. We'll just get the leadership team humming along in the same direction inside StratApp, and we won't disrupt anyone else." Well, within, I think it was 4 weeks, they had 88 people on the app across those 4 countries. Quite a traditional company with a lot of history of M&A and issues in terms of communication and alignment, and just great to see, right? That speed of rollout, no end user training, and then people, once they experience it, they see the power of immediate communication, faster decisions, and working not in chat channels and email, but all of your collaboration is organized around what you're trying to do. And that's a big shift, and it's long overdue, in my opinion.
You're doing things that are in some ways right on top of and possibly better than Slack or Basecamp or some of the other shared workspaces that are out there. From a strategy standpoint, do you see them as potential acquirers, or how do you see that playing out?
So I think we'll end up with one, right? So right now we've built it on Microsoft Azure, and we're on the co-sell program with Microsoft globally, but we could equally end up strategically partnering with and ultimately exiting, via Google, SAP, Oracle, even Facebook is another, and of course Atlassian here in Australia, right? Who have so I love those apps you mentioned. Not all of them, but I'm a huge fan of most of them, and that's what I mentioned before. Like the 10 years ago is when it all changed, and then 5 years ago was where it got better and better, and that's this concept of working on boards and lists and cards. And when you open something, all the collaboration is happening in that space, right? So Basecamp was certainly the pioneer of it. And what's happened, though, is we've ended up with 15, 25, sometimes 50 apps running inside a company. And the Band-Aid has been SSO, of course, right? We'll have single sign-on, therefore we can all access 30 apps seamlessly. And that's kind of been the way it's gone. And I think the other concern I have with that history is it's all been designed and optimized for small teams. So the user experience gets a bit crazy when you have 50 or 100 people on any of those products. And so you have lots of channels, lots of noise, lots of workboards, right? There's no hierarchy, there's no context, and it's not designed to run a company on it. So it's obviously easier for us with that history to look at it, take a fresh view and go, right, if we add org design, if we add social with structure, if we put this under strategy and we link strategy to goals and then we connect the work to it and we take that best practice and put it here, then it's obviously easier to do that in hindsight. And of course, when you build something from scratch, you can start with the end in mind, which is what we've been able to do. But definitely I see us land. Salesforce is another one I should have mentioned before. I see us landing with one of those brands and going deep on how the tech will work together. But right now we need to just scale up and grab as much market share as we can, of course.
Talk to us a little bit about your scaling plan. Where do you go from the 9 countries you're in today? What's on the horizon?
So we'll focus mostly on the US market for the next few years, and then in the next 12 months, we're building a version to run in Japanese, German, and Spanish. That they seem to be the languages where we're getting the most demand at the moment. And been studying hard, different ways to scale up. And we must talk about offshoring and outsourcing if you have the same interest. I'm a huge believer in the next sort of generation of how that's taking place. And that'll be part of our strategy. But the company I admire the most it's controversial, of course, but I love ClickFunnels, that Russell Brunson. And the reason I think it's so relevant for us is he's got a product that's pretty complicated to use. Like StratApp is really easy. Like once you understand a few things, you go, wow, this is really easy, because it doesn't want, if I'm doing a risk or an idea or a task, it's always the same user experience. So you go, wow, this is really quick to learn. He's got a product there for SMB market, which is complicated to use and extremely powerful. So in parallel with that, huge capability to help you onboard and get started and overcome that initial inertia. And I think the way they've done that, we can learn a lot from it. And I think that's what you'll see us doing over the next 2 years. So scaling up will be primarily digital. We'll need to handhold the customer to get them started, because once they're started, they're off and running and they love it. So I think we can learn a lot from ClickFunnels in the way they've done that.
Well, they've certainly built a tribe around ClickFunnels and a community of folks that are raving fans, so to speak.
Yeah, which comes off the back of just delivering great product and great support and great service. And I'm sure we cannot present on stage anywhere near as well as that guy, but the academy and the 30-day challenge, and this week let's build out your strategy tree, and next week we're going to build out your OKRs, and next week we're going to run a program to teach you how to lead in this new age of tech. And you can just imagine, right? We could have 4 or 5 themes and really help customers. And it's scalable that way because it's one-to-many, the way they run those programs. So it's personable, but it's still one-to-many. So we could do the same thing for SMB. And the other one is partners. The huge opportunity for us is consulting, and I'm guilty of it, right? Fly around the world, deliver a PowerPoint deck, 3-ring binders, as you said before. I mean, consulting's still very much, it's still problem solving and writing down the solution and handing it over, and then trying to win your next project. And trying to win that next project through largely relationship building and wining and dining your client and listening to your client describe a problem, and then you go back with a solution, and it hasn't changed much. And the benefit with StratApp is you can work with your client inside the same space, and you become almost part of the organization, and the client controls that, of course. But from what I've seen so far, the client leaves the consultant inside StratApp with them. So you're not handing over PowerPoint, you're actually evolving, executing strategy inside the tech. And so that it's easier for the client because they've already got things running, and they don't have to set anything up because the consultant's doing it for them. And then the consultant inside the tech can see what's going on and can immediately see when projects are falling behind, there's dissent, people are confused, lack of buy-in, everything else. So it's really easy for the consultant then to say, hey, we could help you with X, Y, Z, or I think you should get someone else to help you with this. So, the on-selling and the relationship dynamic changes. So we're talking to, obviously, the tier ones. We've got some great tier 3, tier 4 partners. The tier 2s have been we're trying to get their head into the space. But we've got some great tech companies that have figured it out, tech partners. And I'm hoping we can go to market quickly through 1 or 2 of those in the next 6 months.
Very good. We're talking to Ash Richardson, co-founder of StratApp. And Ash, tell us a little bit about how folks can find you.
So easiest would be the website, stratappsas.com. So strat, S-T-R-A-T, app, sas.com. And of course on LinkedIn. So that'd be the two main channels.
The thing I really love about what you're doing is many times that execution piece, it ends up getting pulled off by, personal heroics, and they might do something just by the skin of their teeth and actually get something done. Whereas you've solved for the kind of cradle to grave process to where there's no guesswork as to, well, now we got to use another system or we're going to lose some continuity. I think it's quite unique and comprehensive, and it's just striking for those of us who are kind of in this game and have been on all sides of the table, and also have an active investment portfolio. This seems like the kind of structure that could have a pathway like Workday and SAP and some of the other things that have taken taken hold of industry and become kind of bedrock and foundational pieces. So it's really exciting to hear what you're up to.
Yeah, thank you. And we have the same view, right? Like Salesforce created the CRM cloud. Xero's led the way with Finance Cloud. And no one's touched Strategy Execution Cloud because, it's complex. And
right.
I think what we've done is we've stayed out of strategy development. We've focused on the execution piece, like you say, because that's where the value is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, when you sit on an airplane and you say to someone, "Hey, what do you do, and what are your plans for the company?" Their eyes light up. Everyone's got a plan. Like everyone's got goals. They always, they're able to answer the question. And when you ask them how the last 3 years go, you see the deflation. Because it's the execution, right? Is where.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what we've solved, and not and really learning from that last 10 years, so that you take the experience that works and give that to people, and that's I think that's what's unique. And so we are creating a new category of software. That's basically the conclusion. And you mentioned investing in portfolios. This is just so perfect, putting my venture capital hat on before. Instead of asking for reports and information retrospectively from your portfolio, if each portfolio company, investee company, is on StratApp, again, you're able to participate just like a consultant would with a company. As an investor, you can participate and collaborate in real time as things are happening, and add value where it counts, because you can see what's going on the strategy, on projects, on initiatives. And I'm still on a couple of boards, and I have that experience. I don't know if you guys have it, where for the first 30 minutes of every board meeting, I'm politely just sitting there going, "Man, it's like we didn't have the last meeting."
Yeah.
That's how I feel,
Yeah.
And I know management are working hard and they're trying to explain, and the conversation becomes so operational, and you get bogged down in detail because everyone feels a need to talk and explain the hard work they've been doing. But the board meeting previously laid out X, Y, and Z, and it's like it's totally forgotten. And you go through the whole cycle again, and you can tell I'm trying to get off the boards as quickly as I possibly can. And StratApp solves that, right? You just know what's going on. You'd be able to see, hey, we've just signed this marketing agency to create another sub-brand, and that was not part of the plan. And if you're able to see that in real time, not to control it, but just to be able to ask the question, "Hey guys, can you just fill me in on this?" And you'd nip it in right there and then. It'd be done. And the meetings would be far more effective when you do get together each 2 months, or every 2 months, or quarterly.
That's great. Ash, we appreciate you for spending time with us today. Excited to learn more about StratApp. Folks can find you at as you said, the website, stratappsas.com, stratappsas.com. And I'd like to put a bug in your ear and maybe reserve the right to bring you back at some point and talk about remote workforce, offshoring, distributed workforce, and all things talent, if that's all right at some point.
I'd love to. I'm passionate about that topic and the potential of it for both onshore and offshore. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Hey folks, this is Jeff Amrine. We want to thank you for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate your time. If you're enjoying the Innovation Junkies podcast, please do us a huge favor. Click the subscribe button right now and please leave us a review. It would mean the world to both of us. And don't forget to share us on social media.